Hi, ladies and gents, and welcome to another day of biology. Today we are going to talk about 3.3, which is the cell membrane, which is really important. We kind of talked about that in chapter 2 with the macromolecules and the lipids and the phospholipid bilayer. So we're going to get into more detail with that today. All right, so this is what the cell membrane looks like, and this seems to you, you're like, I don't see anything. But if you look right here, you'll see this little right here. Right, and this one right here. That is the cell membrane. Now remember, the cell membrane is a bilayer, so bi meaning two. So you're going to have two layers, and so we're going to talk about that today. All right. So the cell membrane, first of all, it's flexible, so it can move, it can bend, it can shift when it needs to, and it allows unicellular organisms, like here to the right, amoeba, to move. Okay, and for us, it allows it to handle like temperature change and things like that. So it's a very flexible, fluid um, piece of the cell. Now, what the cell membrane allows the cell to do is maintain homeostasis. Now, remember, that's a balanced internal condition. So everything is equal. Everything is even keel. Everything is functioning well. It's in homeostasis, and that's what we want. It's also called equilibrium, and what is that? What does equilibrium sounds like? Equal. So everything is equal, and that's what we want. Okay. So how does the cell membrane do this? It controls what comes in and what leaves the cell. Things just can't go in like a door where things just pass in through freely. It is selective. And because it's selective, it controls when the cell is in homeostasis. So it's a good thing. All right, so what are some functions? So I've already talked about it's a protective barrier. So it protects things coming, trying to enter the cell that are harmful or exiting that aren't supposed to exit. It regulates transport of in and out of the cell, like if it needs nutrients or minerals or what have you that are ingested. It allows cell recognition. So when the cells get close to each other, it can say, hey, this is what this is and this is what this is. So it has that ability to recognize different cells or cells of the same type. It provides anchoring sites for filaments of the cytoskeleton. So we'll get to this. And we talked about this in 3.2, and so that cytoskeleton allows it to attach, so it gives it some structure, so it's an anchoring point, so it stays more sturdy, and so that it's a sturdier cell. It also is a binding site for enzymes, so when the enzymes, certain enzymes come through the body, on the surface there, it can attach, and we'll see a picture of that, and do its function. It binds with other cells, so if it needs to communicate with this cell and this cell, it will come together, and that's called a binding site. And then it contains cytoplasm. So inside the cell, the space that isn't organelles, or it's just free space, I guess, is called the cytoplasm. So it holds the cytoplasm in it because that liquid, different chemical reactions take place. So it's a very important part of the cell function. Now this should be review for you. This is phospholipids. We talked about this in chapter 2. It contains two fatty acids that are nonpolar, and the head is polar. So this part here, this is polar. So this one will interact with water. This will not interact with water. Okay, so polar, nonpolar, and that should make sense because water is a polar molecule. Okay. This is a very simple diagram of the cell membrane. So we learned here's the polar head, right? And they are hydrophilic, so water loving. And here, the nonpolar tails are hydrophobic and they are water fearing. So here you have the head and the tail. And so this, because it is polar and nonpolar, it makes it selective. So that's kind of like you've been to a place where, or you've seen on TV where there's like a bouncer and it lets certain people in and certain people can't get in. It's selective. or in college resumes, they're selective. They go through it. Not everyone can get in because it's selective. Same thing with the cell membrane. Okay, this is just another diagram just so you can kind of wrap your head around this. So here, this would be, let's say, the outside. Okay, then you have this, so your cell membrane here, right? Then you have your fatty acid, and then here would be the inside of the cell. Okay, so outside the cell, out here, and this is inside the cell over here. And so this is the bilayer, right? So here's one, and here's two. And this is just kind of what it looks like. You have your hydrophilic head, your nonpolar hydrophobic tails, water-fearing, and again, your head again. All right, so getting more in detail about the cell membrane, okay? So you have, like I said, bilayer means two. So you have layer 1 and layer 2, okay? Hydrophobic molecules can pass easily, like this is oxygen. It can come in and out very, very easily. Hydrophilic molecules do not pass easily. See how it bounced off? It will not let it in. And this would be maybe sodium, okay? So sodium just can't pass through. It just can't. O2, CO2 can pass through freely. And that's a good thing for us because when we inhale and exhale, that is that O2 going in, diffusing through the membrane, and CO2 diffusing out. And so we can get our oxygen needs met. This is the structure of the cell membrane. You will have to draw something like this. So make sure you pay attention and when we talk about the structure here. So these are the components of the cell membrane. Okay, so first of all, obviously we have the phospholipids we've talked about. Then we have cholesterol, which is embedded here, right? You can see it. Cholesterol keeps it fluid. Okay, it's a fatty tissue. And remember, like when we were talking about the the saturated and unsaturated fat. When it was saturated, we were all like this, and you couldn't move it. It became a solid. Well, when it was unsaturated, it kind of kinked up, so it allowed it to flow. So that's what cholesterol does. It kind of gives it a little bit of room in those packed phospholipids and allows it to be fluid. So cholesterol is very important. And then we have proteins, okay? And these proteins can be peripheral, which means on the bottom side or not all the way through. Okay, so it didn't quite go through. And then we have integral or channels, and they go all the way through. So they come to this side, to this side. Okay, and these are going to be used in active transport. The integral protein is active transport. We'll talk about that in 3.5. And then you have, these are called glycoproteins. Okay, that's something a little bit easier than glycocalyx. And these are signals. So like here, you can see this. And so what this is doing this whole time, it's looking for signals. It's looking for signals in the body. And depending on what the signal is, it will tell the cell what to do next. So these glycoproteins are looking for signal. These are receptors. It's kind of like an antenna looking for that signal from the body. Okay. Then we also have the cytoskeleton, which we talked about in 3.2. And the cytoskeleton here attaches to peripheral proteins to give it structure, to anchor it so that there is some structure to that cell membrane. Okay. So these are the components that you will need to know, and I can guarantee this 100%, you will need to draw this. Okay, and we'll practice it in class, so there's no worries. Okay. Now, something in your book it talked about is the fluid mosaic model. And this is just because fluid means, like I said, it was fluid. It can give and take. Now, think about it. I come up to Wazam and I give him a good job, buddy, or to Ahmed, good job, buddy. Does your cell break? No, because it's fluid. It can move. Right? It allows that to move, so it can move within that layer, so it's really important. Mosaic, like you've seen mosaic, you've heard of that term in art, and you take all these little pieces and it makes this beautiful picture. Well, mosaic, because when you look at it from the top down, you see all this pattern, all these patterns because of the transport proteins, the channel proteins, the glycoproteins, the cholesterol, the phospholipid heads. You can see all of that, and it makes this pattern, and so that's how they came up with the fluid mosaic model. The last thing like we were talking about is that the cell membrane is semi-permeable, and the key word there is semi. Sorry. And semi, like if it's semi-formal, it's halfway formal. Semi-permeable, it's kind of permeable. So that means that only certain things can get in. And like we said, O2, CO2, and water can come through very easily. Okay, water and CO2 and O2 can move through very freely. Other molecules like ions, like I said, sodium or chlorine, can't move through. And so, or a big molecule like C6H12O6 or glucose just can't pass through. It's too big, so it needs some help. And we'll talk about that in 3.5 when we talk about how we get these bigger molecules through. All right. That does it for 3.3, the cell membrane. Go back and write down any questions that you have, bring them to class, and I will see you in the lab. Have a good one.